fired. No, that's what he would do. Thank you for coming to Code Enterprise. We are trying out all different sizes. Obviously, we're well known for our giant, enormous Code Conference. We've been doing these smaller events, Code Commerce, a relatively larger one, Code Media, but we also do smaller versions of those. And now we wanted to do it for Code Enterprise on the various topics we cover. In the future, we hope to have code drones, maybe, code robots, and things like that. And so we're trying to talk about different topics and delve into issues. And this is about the future of work. Obviously, it's a big topic, and we cover it quite a bit at Recode. And we tried to assemble a great group of speakers for you who can talk to this issue, from Jeff Weiner of LinkedIn to Diane Green of Google, to the architecture firm that designed the new Amazon biosphere, I guess. I'm not sure what they call it, and how the way we work and where we work changes. Obviously, as we have different kinds of, and Gavin Newsom is going to be talking about new designations of workers. He's going to be running for office at some point, a higher office. He's already lieutenant governor, but he's going to be talking about that. So we're all interested in how work changes, and work was one of the biggest topics in the recent election. You might have heard about this election that we just had. And it was one of the biggest issues of a lot of people unhappy about work and where work is going. They don't have jobs. And Silicon Valley, it was a big driver of the election, more so than I think people realized, especially rage about changes in the workforce. Well, whatever happens, you haven't seen anything yet, because we really believe at Recode that work is going to change drastically, and sometimes not to the better of people in this country and across the globe. And so we think it's a big issue. It's something we want to talk about a lot. And I wanted to begin with someone who I love interviewing. I've interviewed him a lot of times, and he always is a terrific interview. I think the last time I interviewed him, I keep interviewing him at gay events, because he keeps getting he sweeps all the gay awards because he's friendly to the gays. And so the last time I interviewed him, it was in front of, we need friends right now. I interviewed him in front of, I asked him to come to this thing called Lesbians in Tech. And it's an enormous gathering of 1,000 screaming lesbian engineers in the Castro Theater. And I said, Mark, I want you to speak in front of 1,000 screaming lesbian engineers. And he said, you don't have to ask me twice. So without any further ado, Marc Benioff.
Thank you, Kara.
How you doing? Let's climb up into
Doing
our
great.
giant...
You need me to give you a hand on to get up there?
I don't know how I'm going to get up here. I'm going to just... There
Put
we
you
go.
up there.
Okay.
Nice.
Sorry, that was a nice view, but I've lost some weight recently, so it's all right. I usually have red chairs, but whoa, fucking shit, these chairs. This is to screw with me. You had to have these chairs. Why?
When you have a tall person, you have to have tall chairs.
Why?
It's a rule. It's in the dictionary. It says that.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I wanted him to sit in my red chair,
Actually, I
but
think it's in Miss
declined.
Manners for conferences.
All
yeah.
right. Well, I don't like them in any way whatsoever. All right. So why don't... Yeah,
Next time we'll go with your chairs. How's
no,
that?
we won't. There's never going to be a next time with these chairs. So he's already fucking with me. That's his favorite thing. So let's start off talking about the election. I said we were going to talk about it.
You ever see that show Laugh-In?
Yes, I am
And then
old.
Lily Tomlin played that character in the little huge
Edith Ann.
chair.
Yes.
You
I'm
have
Edith
that
Ann,
look.
and I'm 5 years old.
You have that look going.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Edith Ann, and I'm 5 years
Yeah,
old.
exactly.
Yeah. This is for older people in the room. It was quite funny, and it was during the 60s and 70s. So let's talk about the election. So Silicon Valley, there's a lot going around now post-election, a lot of agonizing about what happened, about what should have happened, the involvement of Silicon Valley, now Facebook with fake news, which is becoming a bigger and bigger topic, actually, as we move forward. Can you give me sort of a sense, from your perspective, where we are and what Silicon Valley, what its culpability in this, and what it didn't contribute and what it should have contributed? I don't know who you voted for example, but who did you vote for?
I didn't vote for the winning candidate.
Okay.
But, I feel that, honestly, I have said this already, but I think that, we have to kind of pull together, and we have to have an open mind. Mm-hmm. And I listened to the president's news conference today, and I agree with him, which is, we have a new president-elect. We need to give him our support and give him the benefit of the doubt. And let's see what can happen.
So I get that. That's everybody's answer from Silicon Valley right now. We have to, but there has been history
Well,
here.
I believe, I've said this before, and this doesn't change my position, which is I believe in all things you have to have a beginner's mind. And I think in this case, it's easy to get a whole range of emotions. I have been with my friends all weekend, and I've seen a wide range of emotions, from tears to anger to anxiety, stress. I haven't seen joy yet. I hope I see joy.
Yeah.
And
in San Francisco, no. They're just waiting for January 1st, where they can smoke marijuana for the next 2 years. So. Well, that's my plan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I think we have to have a beginner's mind, and we have to have a reset and let go of whatever anxieties we have, or let go of our fears, and project positivity and project a positive action. My mother says there's only one direction to go now, which is forward.
Right.
I agree with that.
All right. Okay. I get that completely. But there has been a past. What's interesting about Silicon Valley is they're constantly. I talked to a Facebook board member, and not on the record, they did not say this. They're like, we have teal, we're protected. I wanted to knife them in the heart when they said that. It was like sort of like that nobody was thinking of the bigger issues. And I'm not to get political on you, but there were things said before this election by this particular person that don't go away, or do they? Or should Silicon Valley, which has been known for diversity,
I don't know.
tolerance.
Last night on 60 Minutes, I heard that we're not going to have a wall, we're going to have a fence now.
Okay.
So I heard that.
So it's only slightly less appalling.
It's not.
But anyway.
Well, I think that there's a narrative and a rhetoric when you're campaigning and when you're kind of positioning and so forth, and then now all of a sudden there's an adjustment. I even heard in the Affordable Care Act, I heard that there's parts that are very good about the program, including that people with pre-existing conditions are going to be able to have health care, which I think is great.
All right.
And also I heard President Obama is actually a great guy. That was good news.
Okay.
So there's a lot of positive stuff coming.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm not going to get you off of this. I think
that's how I'm going to keep that position for now.
What is Silicon Valley? What are the important issues for Silicon Valley? Because this is not a tech-forward administration. I think probably the Clinton administration, I think, if it would have been, they're sort of in the 1990s.
Okay.
I think the Trump one's in the 70s or so, or somewhere like that. So
right.
And Obama obviously was more on the cutting edge of things. So what does Silicon Valley want from this administration?
Well, I can tell you what Silicon Valley wants in general, which is, I would say that there's specific governance issues that are very important to Silicon Valley, and there's things that are social issues which are very important to Silicon Valley. And I think in terms of governance, I've had the opportunity, I would say I had the honor of moderating probably more than 100 discussions between Silicon Valley executives and President Obama. And in those meetings, the most common things that I've heard Silicon Valley ask for are, one thing is patent reform. This is something that almost happened in Washington about probably a year ago now, and unfortunately it got killed in the Senate. But that's very important. We have a lot of friction in our industry that happens through patents. Two, repatriation. We have a lot of companies that have a lot of money offshore that they think they could grow faster and do more if they can have repatriation. And that's something that has not happened in the last 8 years. And so repatriation looks like some type of marginal tax rate, like maybe 20%, assigned to cash offshore coming back in as a tax. And then three, they want to have H-1B visa reform. This is very important that when, probably one of the greatest assets of our country is our higher education system, and we attract people from all over the world, the best in the world. And right now, when they graduate our universities, they're forced out of the country. Silicon Valley wants us to be able to staple a visa onto their degree when they get it, and I think that would be amazing. Silicon Valley also, I think, very much is focused on fiscal reform in terms of a lot of Silicon Valley executives advocated for Simpson Bowles, which was just something that was not able to get done. And then I would kind of wander into some of the social issues, which are a couple of things like the environment, which is extremely important. We had incredible progress this summer, with Paris, with COP21. And
on that one, but go ahead.
And that's very important to Silicon Valley. A lot of people got involved in that. That's very important to a lot of world leaders and a lot of economic leaders, because they've been educated to the point where they can see that we need to shift. And Silicon Valley is very, very sensitive and focused on inclusion and diversity, which is something, of course, that I've also
So you were in the
had an
forefronts of
opportunity
that.
to.
This is a workplace issue too. You were at the forefront of that around North Carolina and Indiana, especially.
Indiana.
And he's now the vice president.
He's now the vice president, yeah.
So what does Marc Benioff do now that he's the vice president?
I think I continue to do everything that I have been doing, which is my values and beliefs don't shift or change. I believe strongly that, especially as the CEO of Salesforce and also as a leader in our industry, that I need to advocate for the happiness and well-being of all of our, we call them our Ohana, which is our family at Salesforce, which includes our employees, our customers, our partners, people who use our service, our friends. And it's very important to me that we are constantly looking out for everybody, and that is especially important in all of our communities.
So how does that manifest itself in this administration? This is the governor who signed this bill into law in Indiana.
Well, and then he changed it.
Yes.
So that's positive.
Right.
So,
after pressure from business people.
Yeah, there was some enlightenment involved, so that was good. And I think that what happened in that situation is, in Indiana, he did sign that law. We had asked him not to sign the law, to be honest. He signed the law, and then we asked him to change the law. And after about 2 weeks and thousands of companies all saying, please sign the law, change the law, he changed the law, and we were able to move on and move forward. And then, of course, we almost had the same situation in Georgia. The governor did not sign the law, and then the governor signed the law in North Carolina, and I checked. I don't know if Roy Cooper is the new governor in North Carolina, or if we have the guy who signed the law or not. But it's definitely was a major issue that occurred in the election.
So how much do you think CEOs should be more political? Because you're probably one of the more political CEOs in that terms of advocating for workplace reforms, especially.
I don't know. I don't think CEOs should be political. I think that what CEOs should do is understand that employees and customers and consumers have a choice for the products and brands that they do business with, and that they therefore represent those people who are their customers and employees and stockholders even, and all their stakeholders. And I think that we're kind of shifting from, and I see this with the most avant-garde CEOs, we're shifting from CEOs who are all about shareholders and the criticality of that it's all about the shareholder, and I think that it's all about the stakeholder. And if you don't have a broader view into everything that's going on, then you don't really looking at all of your stakeholders. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to shift my own thinking so that I'm thinking about all of our Ohana.
But not being okay. I'm going to let you go with the Ohana thing.
Thank you.
I'm trying.
You're
really
part of
hard.
the Ohana.
Oh God. Yeah. All right. So when you talk about that, though, you don't feel as if, like, Jeff Bezos has really gone out on limbs. Meg Whitman, for example, quite political. How does that impact, at the workplace? The CEO.
Do you
of
mean
Grubhub,
because Jeff Bezos bought Washington Post?
Yeah, but he's been very verbal about his
Howard Schultz,
some others.
Yeah.
Does the modern workplace require that to have a point of view, or is it more like we're not going to say anything?
No, I think you have.
Which I think is sort of the Facebook
Not
model.
only do I think you should have a point of view, I think you should be clear on what your point of view is. Because like I said, I think that people have a choice. And I think that you have to be clear about what your company stands for, what's important to you, what your actions are. These CEOs are very well paid, and they have high-profile positions. Their positions are also very much at risk on a regular basis because the boards can easily just go and fire a CEO at any moment, which is, happens on a regular basis. So CEO has to be out there, and CEO has to be willing to take on that risk. And I think today they have to be willing to take on more of that risk by making clear what their positions are on these things. I think it's really important today. And I think that if anything of what this election shows, you better let your voice and your position be known. You know, that's certainly what our whole country is based on, this idea that we're all in this together, and we're all voting hopefully together, and we're all advocating together, and we're all moving forward together.
Right.
And when that doesn't happen, then anything can happen.
Right, which is what it feels like right now, which is a really interesting time in our history. I'm going to move on to, away from politics to...
Thank you for that.
No problem, because I'm going to go right to Twitter. Tell me about your attempt to purchase it in all details, please.
Well, I can't do that, but
Really?
what I will tell you is...
But you really want to. I can see it behind your eyes.
You know, I mean, I'll get back to my last comment, which is that as the CEO of Salesforce, I advocate for all my stakeholders.
Right.
And in that case, you saw that one of my key stakeholders, my shareholders, made it very clear that they wanted me to
Not do
exit that dream or vision or idea, and I did, because I have no choice. I have to, you know, if I am anything, I have to be able to listen.
Right.
And if I wasn't listening, then I wouldn't really be
Right,
the
so a lot of CEOs don't
leader
listen.
that I'm trying
Right,
to be.
but a lot of CEOs don't listen and move forward with things that may be unpopular.
Right.
So can you talk about the vision of what you were trying to do? I know he showed me before all his talking points, that's why I love Mark. He goes, look what I'm not supposed to say. And one of them was, don't say we tried to buy it. You already said it, like we thought about buying it.
Yeah, so we should just move forward.
All
That's
right.
my point.
Everybody understands that you tried to, but what was the idea? Because I never understood it. Peter Kafka and I spent hours trying to figure it out, why you wanted to do that.
I could give you a whole presentation on the screen here.
Yes, okay.
But I really just feel like I don't want to antagonize my shareholders where I've already agreed, with them that I need to move forward. That was an uncomfortable meeting that I had at Dreamforce.
Right,
At a
it
really
was.
incredible
Yeah.
conference, and then I walked into a room with 200 shareholders, and they were like, "Look, you need to listen more closely to us," and I agreed with
Right,
them.
okay. What do you think will happen to Twitter then? Because you obviously had regard for it. I think we've talked about it before, I think, at a dinner.
I think it's a great company. I think it's a great CEO. I think it's a huge vision. I think it's very unique, has a unique position in the world. And I think, as evidenced by this election, I think it's more important than ever.
Yeah, it's certainly, I was thinking Donald Trump should buy it. But some days I wish I had taken that job at Google, then I can buy it and close it down.
Without Twitter, I don't think you would have
Right.
President-elect Trump.
No, absolutely.
That's reality. I mean, as he said it very well. He said, "I have a beautiful Twitter account." Those were his words.
Yeah.
And I
was thinking that doesn't sound very well to me, but okay. So the impact of it is what you think is important, the impact of a global communication system where people
I think it's very unique, and I think there's a lot of things that can be done with it that are very exciting.
Such as?
All kinds of things, magical things. And I can't go into those
All right,
things.
okay. So
I
let's
wish
talk-
I could.
You
I'm
wish you
sorry.
could. Let's
I think
talk
it's a great company.
All right. So do you think it will be all right? Because a lot of people backed off from, as you did, after hearing from
Yeah.
their shareholders or having various reasons why or why not. Do you think it'll be
Yeah,
able to continue to
absolutely.
survive? Okay. You bought other things, though. Quip.
Yes.
You bought Quip, Demandware.
Yes, we've bought quite a few companies. We've bought about almost 40 companies, and we've bought quite a few companies this year.
Right.
And this year, something happened, and CEOs wanted to sell their companies. And that doesn't happen very often.
Right.
And you
What
have to kind of,
happened?
I don't really know. I think it's something in the funding environment, actually. I think that, I know because I still get a lot of emails from CEOs who want to sell their companies. And I think there's a lot of companies that are out there that are for sale. I think we're lucky that we were able to pick up, some of the very best companies, certainly in our area. I think there's also other amazing companies that are for sale and that are available. And for whatever reason, CEOs want to sell now. I don't really know why they do. I think, I've said this publicly before, I feel that we're going to go into a growth phase of our economy. I'm a little bit contrarian in this mode, that I feel that 17 will be a good year for the world, and that we will go forward economically, that we're kind of at the end of the 2008 cycle. This is what I think. I'm not aligned with, most global economic thinkers on that, but I feel like we've burned off a lot of the baggage of 2008, which was very difficult for the global economy, and we're kind of moving into this new world.
All right.
I think that it's unfortunate that we haven't been able to move into this new world faster, but because 2008 was so horrific economically and damaged so many financial components of the global system, that we haven't been able to shake it.
So what Quip? Why did you do that?
Well, I mean, this is a great example where, I've known Brett for 5 or 6 years. Brett Taylor is an incredible person, you know that. He was at Google, he was the CTO of Facebook, and then about 4 years ago, he started this company. And I remember exactly when he started the company, because we have dinner once a month with each other. And I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I can't tell you. What are you doing? Finally, about a year later, he's like, oh, well, I'm going into enterprise software. I'm like, oh, geez, this is going to be amazing. What's going to happen? And then when I saw the product, which was about 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, I'm like, well, this is amazing. This would be incredible. And he's like, no, we're going to be independent for a long time. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Whatever you want to do. I'm a huge fan of him. And Kevin also. I don't know if you've met Kevin Gibbs, his co-founder, incredible. And Kevin, of course, has an incredible lineage with Google and App Engine. Brett has an incredible lineage at Google, but also in Facebook. And all of a sudden, I was talking to Brett this summer, and he said, look, I think we might want to sell the company to you. And what had happened is we had been talking, and he had been working with our new Lightning framework. We have a brand new, incredible platform that's integrated into Salesforce called Lightning, and our customers have been really loving it, and our partners too. And he had been using it, and he had built a Lightning control for Quip, and we had been talking about that and how exciting that was, and our customers, were about to see it for the first time, and I'm like, geez, if you ever could see yourself, as part of Salesforce, this would be incredible. He's like, I know, and he goes, I think I probably could see that, and I'm like. And I think 48 hours later, the deal was signed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that fast.
Wow, that's fast.
It was actually, I think it was the fastest deal that the fastest deal we were ever able to get done. And it was even calling an emergency board meeting and the whole thing.
Yeah, that was for how much? 700?
It was something like that. Yeah.
In 2 days.
I don't know the specifics. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a quick decision.
It was I knew that that's what we wanted.
Right.
I mean, that's a great example. He's one of a kind. Kevin is one of a kind. The product is world class. I love the product. I use the product every day. And I have a lot of friends who use the product. You look at companies like Facebook who have tens of thousands of users on the product, and many other companies that have thousands of users on the product. And he saw the fit with us, and we saw the fit with him, and it's easy to go ahead.
Wow, that's still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but not relative actually to his last valuation and so forth. I think the company was appropriately valued. I mean, it's a one-of-a-kind company.
And then Demandware?
Demandware is also a one-of-a-kind company in that it is the largest and most exciting cloud-based commerce solution in the world. It has, of course, it has had incredible growth and success, but you look at a company like Adidas, they just had a situation where they sold like 10,000 of the new, Kanye Yeezy shoes in an hour. And that it's able to do this, to sell commerce at incredible levels in the cloud is awesome. And we did not have a commerce solution. It's a critical touch point for our customers and companies that we have huge relationships with, like Louis Vuitton. And with Louis Vuitton, you can just see, we're touching a lot of their framework of their customers. Like, if you go into a Louis Vuitton store, you'll see they'll come up to you with this incredible app on their phone that we've built with them called Icon, and they have all your customer information, what you've bought and what you like and all that, but then they'd like to be able to just check you out right in the store. Well, they can do that, with Demandware now.
Right.
So that's really cool.
So what else are you looking at? What are the other kinds of companies? that you think is important?
Well,
if you're assuming
right.
you're the buyer, right? And then we're going to talk about you being bought too, about what happened with Microsoft.
Okay.
But what other kind of things do you think are important? Because you're doing commerce, you have over here, you have Quip, you've got you've morphed beyond your original core business.
Well, the way we look at our core is that what Salesforce's position in the industry, okay, is the company that helps you to connect with your customers in new ways. So you're a company like Adidas or Louis Vuitton or a company like Cisco or whoever, pick your company, and we say, okay, now let's look at the framework of how you're connecting with your customer, because the front office is really the new back office. So what are you doing in sales and service and marketing and communities, in analytics, and building apps, and commerce, and IoT, all these customer touch points, how can we give you a single view of that customer? So that you can say, yes, this is our customer, and wham, here it is. Here's everything about this customer. And that's what all of our customers want so badly. And so when we look at frameworks for acquisitions, we're really looking at it in that way, saying, yeah, okay, Demandware is here, commerce, okay, that fits. And we have a very kind of thoughtful, mindful approach to acquisitions.
So what are you actually missing? What do you feel like you aren't, what touch point aren't you touching?
I think there's probably a lot of touch points that we're not touching. I think there's a lot of ways that companies connect with their customers that we're not in. That said, no one is selling more, CRM or this customer relationship management or customer service and systems than we are. We're the, we're the largest of those companies.
What are you missing?
Well, I think some of the companies that I've gone for that I haven't bought. So.
Yeah. Name a few areas. You don't have to tell me.
Well, I think that what you saw with social networks, obviously that's an area that we're not in.
Right.
And that's a critical customer touch
point.
Were
you one of the possible buyers of Yammer at that time, or I don't remember?
We looked at that, but we have our own service that's integrated into our capability called Chatter.
Right.
It's very popular with our customers, so it just didn't give us ability. I'm a huge fan of David. That's he's one of my heroes.
So social networks, because people can talk to customers, presumably, right?
Anywhere where that customer is having a conversation or connecting or wanting service or sales or looking to conduct business.
There aren't that many social networks, really.
No. I mean, you can look at some of our services. We'll look at Demandware. They have more than 300 million users on Demandware. That's awesome. So that's very analogous to a Twitter, for example. They have about 300 million users as well. You look at actually our email. A better one is probably our Marketing Cloud, where we're the largest email and messaging provider in the world. We have 400 million users on that service. So those are big consumer-facing assets that our customers are using to connect with their customers.
Do you have to keep buying to grow? Is that something?
No, our core is so strong, that we're the fastest growing of the top 10, and you can see in our second quarter results that we really continue to have that kind of strong double-digit growth. So that was very exciting, and I'm a little bit constrained in what I can say right now because we're in a quiet period, as you know, so I really can't pierce that, but I was very happy with how we did in the second quarter.
So talk a little bit about you as a possible acquisition target. Did you have serious discussions with Microsoft? I'm going to take away serious discussions with Microsoft, because you CEOs always parse something if I say it.
When Satya came in and the chairmanship changed with John Thompson, John has been a friend of mine for 2 decades or more. Actually, since 80.
This is the chairman of Microsoft.
Yeah, 95, since 95. And when he was at IBM running OS2. And so we had a lot of conversations about different possible relationships between Salesforce and Microsoft. And John made a case that it's a new Microsoft with a new slate. They were going to change their business ethics and how they did business and how they want to do partnerships, and that we should engage with them and look at different opportunities to partner with them. And we looked at every possible option.
Meaning also a sale. And
everything.
Why did you not do that?
I think that what we started to find was that, I mean, there was one really very pivotal meeting I could tell you about that really changed everything. And it was, you know, the context is that there's a new Microsoft. And
What is it, 100% less mean? What was
well, I'm a very trusting person. I'm
Yeah.
open to that, you know,
Right.
and so it's new
As
players
I can
that I didn't
see.
know. So you know that.
As you
You
can
know me
see,
pretty well.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's find out what's going on. So anyway, you know, one of the meetings that definitely impacted, I think, the relationship is that I got a phone call from Satya, but this new relationship, and my new best friend, you know,
Right.
and I'm giving John the benefit of the doubt on this. And the call was, hey, will you meet with this executive we have here, Scott Guthrie? He runs Azure, and I'd really like you to walk him through the details of your business, because maybe we can get Salesforce to run on Azure, and that would be very exciting for you. And I'm like, okay, and it was clear also that you know, he was someone who was not in our business. He's running Azure. And so I had this meeting with him, and then a couple weeks later, I read in the newspaper, or probably on Recode, that Scott was now running the CRM business.
Oh,
And so I was like,
that sounds like any one of Google's meetings, but go ahead. Go ahead.
and I was just very kind of surprised by that. And
Right.
so
And
that's
he
when
didn't
I
give
was.
you that information?
I just kind of came to the conclusion at that point that the new Microsoft was actually the old Microsoft.
Okay.
And that's just how it goes. And
Yeah.
so it's not something that I would do, you know, but it's a different way of looking at things. So,
Right, and so
then things like that kept happening. And
then Bomber kept jumping out of closets? What? No.
well, like we were a partner,
Yeah.
we're a partner.
All right.
And then we got a call that we were, you know, all signed up to go to this partner conference. And then, you know, oh, you're not allowed to go to the partner conference.
What? They
Yeah.
disinvited you,
They
Mark?
disinvited us.
Yeah.
And just a lot of little things like this started stacking up. And then I think when we kind of put it all together, I'm like, I don't feel like this is exactly the new Microsoft that we were looking for.
Okay, so no purchase.
So-
Now, then you fast forward, you compete. So
And the reality is, I'm also looking at, you know, look, at the end of the day, and you know this, is that Salesforce is a special company. I feel like we have done a great job over the last 17 years. You know, we started in 99. We have 25,000 employees. We have 150,000 customers. We look at kind of we got 1 billion people using our service, whether it's customers, partners, consumers, whether it's, you know, all citizens, all these folks, you know, that we have an obligation to look at that and to move the energy that we've created with Salesforce forward. And I am looking at that with a level of responsibility. I think you know that. And I
Yeah.
kind of, to your questions,
well,
that I feel like Salesforce does have a kind of a role to play, and that
that you didn't want to get bought. I would have enjoyed seeing you as a Microsoft executive because it would provide me endless amusement and stories. But
Thank you.
But,
Well,
but
and I hate to take that away from you.
I know, but that's all right. You'll do something else ridiculous at some point. So
That's probably true.
It's probably true.
I always
so,
do.
Talk a little bit about the LinkedIn acquisition. You were looking at that also.
Yes.
How serious was that from your point of view?
I like that asset. I think that's a great asset. I really like I've said this before, I really like their financial architecture. Some of the things that they've done, I liked their balance sheet a lot. I thought it was really undervalued. And the reason why is you saw in January they had an equity event and their equity got cut in half.
Right.
And that's when, you know, we said, oh, wow, that's something we have to go look at. And others went and looked at that as well.
Right. And it didn't improve, even though their results improved the next quarter, which was interesting. How close were you to doing that, or did Microsoft just swoop in there and grab it for that price? Were you in
Well,
in
if
in
you
that
read
range?
through the proxy, you'd
Yeah, I
know
did.
we were extremely close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
But you have to understand that was a lot of money for a company
For your size,
for a
yeah.
company our size.
Yeah. But you were willing to pay that to acquire that
Well, I
asset.
thought that was a great deal for our shareholders.
Uh-huh.
And but I didn't have that opportunity to
So now
provide that to them.
you're opposing it. Can you explain that for?
Well, yeah, what happened was that executive I met before, Scott Guthrie,
Right.
he ended up part of this, and it's not something that we had even really thought about, but all of a sudden, he was at a Deutsche Bank conference, and he started talking about how he was going to use LinkedIn, and what he said was he was going to wind the LinkedIn data with their CRM data, with their productivity data, with all the other data streams that Microsoft has, especially proprietary data streams, to create what he said at Deutsche Bank, which was essentially a barrier to entry for other players in business productivity, where they have a monopoly, or in other markets. And I was surprised about that.
This is with Office and other to work with
Yeah.
them.
And I was surprised at that, and that's kind of their vision. You can read the transcript; it's all very clear, and he makes it inordinately clear, and so that was just something we said, whoa, that sounds
you
like
should
that's
have
illegal,
access.
actually.
Right.
Like, why would Scott Guthrie want to go and do that?
Right, yeah.
And then Satya, we have the new Microsoft here with
Yeah.
Satya. I don't
They have been
understand.
down that road before.
Well, yeah, you have to think, look, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, as long as we're giving everyone the benefit of the doubt.
I feel we shouldn't give anybody the benefit of
They were the middle managers
Right.
for the last 2 decades in this organization, and now they've kind of moved up. And so this is how they've been, trained in business. But I think that specifically to this point, that not just us, but I think dozens of other software companies have seen that transcript now, and
What
have
do you
also
imagine
said,
happening at this point? You're not going to stop this thing, or are you?
well, I don't know what's going to happen, but what I certainly do hope, because the FTC didn't look at this, but the European
Yes.
regulators are looking at this.
Yeah, I talked to Marguerite Vestager about it. But go ahead.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. I mean, she is the person who is
Yeah.
really looking at this, and
Yeah.
she needs to make a decision on what does this mean for the ability for companies to trade in data. We've seen that companies are acquiring companies to potentially create proprietary data streams to create barriers of competition. So if the US government is not going to look at that, then another government will have to, like the European Union Competition Commissioner, like a commissioner, like this commissioner, or the Chinese also have a competition commission.
Why
and so
isn't the
forth.
U.S. as aggressive in this? They sort of passed on a lot of these investigations.
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I don't really know.
Did you press them, the FTC and others?
Probably not. We were probably not as on top of it as we could have been, and then all of a sudden we were, and I think we've tried to surface it. I think, Richard Waters, I think, wrote a really good article in the FT recently on it. I think there's been a number of other really excellent editorials on it, but it's this idea that you're going to buy a company to create a barrier to entry. That is just something that is a little bit foreign to me.
Is that dangerous to your business? Because Office is a critical. No, it's one of.
I don't think it's necessarily dangerous to our business, but like, for example, we bought Quip, we want to enter office productivity.
Right.
And so Microsoft wants to maintain their monopoly and doesn't want innovation in that area. So they're going to say, well, now we've integrated all of this LinkedIn stuff into Office, so now why would you want Quip?
Yeah, that's the idea.
And not just the data, that's not really what we're talking about. We're really talking about signals. And that is that, as we kind of move into this new world, some of the signals in LinkedIn is, you're in your LinkedIn profile and you're like, oh yeah, I am not at Recode anymore, I'm at Vox, and I make that change and I change my phone number and all that. And those signals change, or the relationship strengths change, and that's information, that metadata, those magic words, metadata, they have that. So they may say, oh, we're going to license you the data, but then what about the metadata and the signals? That's also, a critical part of it. In our business, it's a little bit foreign, I have to tell you why, because in our business, the data that we have in our systems is not our data. It's our customers' data. We can't see our customers' data. So when you look at the data that's in Salesforce or in our service cloud or our marketing cloud community. We can't see that data. That's our customers' data. So when we let our customers build applications on that data and that kind of thing, that's for them. Or even when we build our new Einstein, which is our new AI.
We're going to talk about that. We're going to finish
this,
up discussing that.
Yeah, and the way we're doing AI is really different than others because our AI system, which is, I think, a pretty big breakthrough in how AI is done, is it can make these decisions with the customer without having to actually, without us having to see or normalize the data.
So talk broader about AI and why everybody is pushing into it in Silicon Valley. I mean, it's sort of the buzzword now. I forget what the last one was, but what does that mean for...
Mobile was one of them.
Right, mobile, yeah, I remember that one. Talk a little bit about that idea of what AI is supposed to be. I mean, for you and for...
Well, I think if you haven't seen the Terminator movie, it's worth going to check that out.
Right, yeah. That didn't end so well. Yeah.
It is kind of awesome because I think for a lot of the, science fiction movies that have dealt in artificial intelligence for the last
ends badly.
Several decades.
Yeah.
And I think now we're starting to see the formation of some of that technology, and that's why we need to have more awareness around that. And whether it's machine learning, machine intelligence, deep learning, or any other level of artificial intelligence, I think that we have seen some very significant breakthroughs, especially in the last 3 to 5 years.
When we had Elon on stage at Code, he was one of the, we had Facebook and Google who control quite a bit of it, and it was sort of happy, shiny people talk about how great it would be for all of us and how helpful and how great, and the fact that they run all of it was even better. They say
They've also done good jobs of pushing it into the public domain.
That's right.
Because they do have this technology, unlike other technologies, as some of these next-gen enterprises have worked on it, they kind of get to another level. And one of the reasons it's going faster, not just because universities have had big breakthroughs in it, but because organizations like that have a slightly different technology model that we have not seen in our business before, where some of these folks, whether it's the deep mind, whatever, they get to a certain level where they get their next algorithm, and then they kind of push it in the public domain as they go to work to the next level.
But one of the things
really
Elon was concerned with is the control by certain companies of a lot of this technology. And he felt, he's pushing open AI, and he's more in the Terminator school of thinking.
Yeah.
And I think his best case scenario, I think he felt like if they treat us like house cats, it'll be okay. And I interviewed Bruce Jerkale today of the Internet Archive, and he said the same thing. One day we're going to be in a cage, and we're not going to know. How are we going to know we're in a zoo?
Well, that's how Elon thinks today. That's what's going on. I don't know if you've talked to Elon, but he, Elon believes we're all in a simulation.
He does. He does. That's true.
That is, we're all in a cage.
Right. Yeah.
And he believes that AI is already out there. On us.
Yes.
And that's.
But
you're not
other
going to go
people
any
have
farther
this.
there, but that's okay.
But many people do
I won't
worry.
push you on that, but you know what
I
I'm saying.
understand, but many other people who do not believe we're in a simulation do believe that there is worries about, one, who controls it, who has more control than other people, or other companies, and two, that it creates job elimination.
Well, I think this kind of gets back to our first narrative in this discussion, which is, companies have different sets of values. Leaders have different sets of values. We know that in the election. We look at this in our industry. So you can say, here's your leader, here's the things that they believe in, whether it's, democracy, freedom, whether it's inclusion, diversity. And you can say that also about companies, too. I'm sure you talk to you're inside of a lot of companies yourself, and different companies have different sets of values. You can even just walk and see, sometimes on the very front door of a lot of companies, say, these are our values, and quality is job one, or whatever it is. So I think that, he's right, that, different companies are going to have different sets of values and going to operate on these assets differently. I'm not sure that any one company will control artificial intelligence. I think it's too big, and I think it's...
What do you think about the job issue, too, is that if you're putting artificial intelligence in everything, does it, here you are a company helping people do a workforce, manage a workforce, and manage their customer relationships. What does that look like? Because, I am concerned with the companies who control it. I had a discussion a long time ago with Larry Page when he was talking, when it was about when they were trying to buy Yahoo to do the search or to do search, and I'd written a piece to say they can't have 99% of the market, they just can't have it, and they kept insisting they could, and they were very good and everything else, and I think my line, which was somewhat rude at the time, was at least Microsoft knew they were thugs when they were doing monopolistic practices, and he called up and he said, that's very mean, kind of stuff, and I said, well, how do I know that you are good? Like, how do I know that you will do the right? Well, I'm a good person. And I was like, yeah, but what about the next owner of Google and the next owner? Who runs it? And so when I think about AI, I do wonder how we manage that and how quickly it moves into other things that we have unintended
I think that those are all the right questions.
So talk about whether AI, where you see AI in your company. What does it do? Does it replace jobs? Does it make things easier? What does it do?
I think that it will help our customers and our users be more effective in their jobs. I think that will be the first step. I think that's all we can actually see at this point.
Meaning what? Give me an example of that.
Oh well, I think take an example of a salesperson who's working on making a sale, and they forget to return an email of one of their key decision makers. That decision maker is listed in their database and all the meetings they've had and discussion and their discussion notes, and then all of a sudden this kind of assistant, Einstein, says to them, hey, you didn't email that guy back. Why didn't you do that?
So benign things like that.
Or maybe you should set up a call with this person to be more effective, or prioritize your day based on what you're working on.
Do you think it will?
You see that kind of like in Google Now, for example.
Do you see it replacing jobs? Do you think it's, because again, this
I think that it probably will replace certain jobs, and technology over time has replaced certain jobs, so I think we can assume that AI will replace certain jobs, but AI is not going to replace all jobs.
Which ones?
Well, I think that you can see that in position, I mean, we can go through every industry, but I think in a lot of areas where there might be technology that could be augmented to replace manual labor or specific manual tasks. But it could go quite the distance.
And does Silicon Valley have a responsibility to understand these implications? Because right now, even with this election, they don't want to take responsibility.
Well, I don't agree with that.
Really?
No.
Well, you're wrong.
I mean,
we are not at all responsible for fake news.
Well, I think that's one executive made that statement.
Right.
And so that's hand waving, and I think that probably was wrong. So I do think that responsibility, this is an area that I'm interested in. And I think that, for example, Silicon Valley leaders, the leaders in this room, me and you know how I feel, which is that all of us have to take some level of personal action and responsibility. I think that for me, one of the things that I'll tell you like one thing that I'm really excited about. So on Wednesday, it's going to be, we're really going to go off subject for a second. On Wednesday, it's going to be Prematurity Day in the world, Global Prematurity Day. And it's really to bring awareness around premature birth. And I'm really focused on all levels of children's health, the children's hospitals, different types of diseases associated with kids, Zika. And I've been funding with Gates Foundation an idea that came out of an article that I read by Atul Gawande called On Slow Ideas, which is that there isn't any kind of centralized support on premature birth. When I read that, I just feel inherently in myself I have a level of responsibility to act on that. And we funded this effort at UCSF, and we've been able to create a predictive model around premature birth. There's going to be this incredible new $30 test to be able to see if this child is coming prematurely or not. And I kind of connect those things together where it's like people who are given this responsibility, they have this obligation.
You're unusual, wouldn't you say?
No, I don't think I am. I think more and more I see, like even in our 1-1-1 model, which was unique when we started in 1999, but now we have more than 1,000 companies that are doing that. And I think that, in the case of this effort, I had the vision, and then I could see that we could have an impact on premature birth. I felt that way about when I started Salesforce. All of a sudden, I realized that same intuition that I had here, that I could connect with some feeling that could turn into reality, I'm going to act on that. And I also feel that way about our public schools, that we have to
and
all
the city
get
of San
involved.
Francisco.
We are seeing really good success in our SFUSD, and it's because of a number of leaders getting involved in the schools.
And you've gotten more people involved.
Oh,
more
yeah,
companies.
and it's exciting.
So,
and you can see it empirically. That's what's cool. And we need to go work on Oakland next.
ending, because we have some questions from the audience, if we have some questions from the audience, would you do a lot of public things, you give a lot of money away and stuff like that. Would you ever consider running for public office?
I wouldn't, and I'll just tell you why, which is that, first of all, I'd be a terrible politician, you know that.
I don't think that matters now, but go ahead.
And I'm backing you for mayor,
That
so
is
I don't
true.
want to interfere.
I'm feeling governor now.
I want to have my clear support.
But why not?
I think 2020 could be good for you.
Governor? Or no, go against poor Gavin Newsom?
Yeah. No, governor's 18.
18, you're right.
Right.
Yeah.
2020 is the next presidential run.
It feels like people who are rude and tell it like it is have a lot of success, so you and I should win everything. But you don't want to run for office at all?
I'd rather not.
Yeah, because? You don't feel that...
I think I'm more effective in what I'm doing.
In what you're doing now. All right, Marc Benioff, thank you. So questions? Question right here. Got a mic. Where's the mic? It's right here. Questions from the audience? Please ask. Come on, someone. Question? Nobody has a question.
I'm also happy just to go home, so that's fine.
Yeah. Okay, do you want to go over here? Oh, go ahead. Just go ahead. I'll repeat it.
Hi, I'm Lauren Good from The Verge. This is an excellent interview. I'm not just saying that because Kara's sort of my boss. But I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the plan from some people in the tech industry to actually exit the country in California, the Cal exit.
Yeah. Oh, good question.
Cal Brexit.
Cal exit. She's asking about the plan for Cal exit.
Cal exit?
Yeah.
I think that it's silly. I mean, I think, here's what I look at. First of all, I'm a native San Franciscan. I was born a few blocks from this building.
Long time. Your family's been here a long time.
I went to public schools, and I love California. I love San Francisco. I also love being an American. I re-registered my party affiliation about 9 years ago, or a decade ago, and I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I just view myself as an American, and I want the ability to just support America. And also, when I travel the world and I get to meet with other business leaders, I've also had the opportunity to meet many incredible world leaders, the heads of, most of the significant nations I've had an opportunity to talk to, like we're talking. And
you have gurus and shamans.
And I have a spiritual side too.
He's invited me to meditate with him many times.
I would love for you to come and do some of that.
That is never going to happen. So.
But I'll tell you that I love America. I love what we stand for. I love that we are about the pursuit of happiness and freedom. And I love that we have a democratic system. I love that we can all vote and that we can choose a president. And we're not going to always like the president that we choose for, but good news, there's another election coming. And for people who don't vote, however, or who don't get involved or who don't advocate for their position, then that's not American. I think what America is all about is we all get motivated, excited. Maybe we can channel our frustration into motivation, and then we go create what we want in our lives. And that's what San Francisco is about, by the way. San Francisco is the most avant-garde city in the United States. You look at the Summer of Love. You look at the things that have come out of San Francisco. I could go through the list. If you're interested, since you're going to be mayor, I should probably educate you.
I'm aware of it. I'm aware.
I actually, my grandfather was a supervisor here for many years, and there was a book actually just published this week on the history of BART, which it was his idea to come up with BART, and he had a little sheriff's kind of badge as a San Francisco supervisor on it, and I kind of look back at that and conversations that I had with him, and just his visions for a greater San Francisco. San Francisco is a very important place. It's our best value system in the United States. In my opinion. I mean, I think that we have it right. I think
So exiting from the United States is an error.
Well, I'll tell you why.
It also means we need to have a lot of guns if we want to do that. But but
I don't agree with that. But I think that
I don't think they'll let us leave. I have this feeling that
But
it will
here's
not
why.
happen.
Because it's our job to influence and push all this energy, all this good stuff
Right.
towards everyone that you think needs it. You know, if you are feeling that somebody is not where you want them to be,
Yeah.
then visualize them and pray for them and support them and lift them up.
I think to be fair, California feels like it's been doing this for a while, and it looks like it didn't really stick. Like when you look at some of the, okay, we thought we overcame anti-gay, anti-race, we thought we overcame a lot of these
Well,
things.
we have overcome a lot of things.
Except not. That's why I think there's the frustration to do it.
There's
it's like it's
going to
not
always going to
working.
be more work to do.
But
and
I
that's
think it was
what
a
makes life.
shocking amount of,
I
for a
think
lot
this
of
is-
people.
I think life would be really boring if there were no challenges.
Okay.
So, and I think it's good
I'm
for
just
there
saying
to be
that's where
opportunities
that's where it comes
to
from.
work on things.
That's where it comes from, because it felt like there was changes in gay rights and everything, and
There
all of a
have
sudden,
been changes in gay rights.
yet it feels boom right
Oh,
back.
I understand.
So that's what I think.
I
I think
understand.
that's where it comes from.
Well, I think that
but
we're
you
going to
don't
have
think
to
we
go.
should exit?
No, I don't think we should exit. I think we should fight harder. I think we should make it clear what we believe in. We should take individual action. We should all have a personal thing that we're working on. You don't have to work on all the things I'm working on. I have a long list of things I could go through. I want to take every homeless child off of the streets of San Francisco. That really bothers me. I want to fix Zika. I have a lot of crazy things I want to do, but everyone should work on one thing. If you could work on one thing, if everybody did one thing, then I guarantee you that we will make the world better and things will improve. And San Francisco is a place where a lot of people do a lot of really good work. And that's inspired me. Those people inspired me to do these things.
Right.
And that's what I want to do.
So you're staying in the United
I'm
States?
staying.
Fine.
Circle back to
Quentin is leaving, though. So goodbye, Quentin. Oh, okay.
I love it.
Quentin is staying, too.
They
Good.
just-
We need you, Quentin.
they're leaning towards Giuliani for Secretary of State. So at this point, it's like no one cannot have a conflict in this cabinet.
Right. Okay.
But I wanted to circle back to Microsoft and AI because I saw Satya talking in Atlanta, and of course he was talking about AI, and he leads with CRM.
Yeah.
Right.
And man, it looks a lot like Einstein.
It does.
So it's
Yeah.
pretty clear it is on.
Yeah.
And
I read that in the New York Times, actually.
yeah, well, that was my thing. And
Quentin works at the New York Times, just so you know. Yeah. Wasn't his story, but it was.
and you bought like 10 companies.
Yeah.
Some of them have big databases like Crux and Demandware.
Yeah.
No, he
Some
didn't
do
mention Crux.
AI, and you got Brett in there as kind of an architect to string all this together. They've got like years of doing Bing and search and tons of databases.
Uh-huh.
Sure does.
Handicap for me how this is going to work out as dispassionately as you can.
It feels as if Quentin's
Yeah.
a little worried for you.
Well, I mean, I think that, when I look back, when I started Salesforce 17 years ago, I can't remember if we had that same conversation or not, but it was close. And, I just look at, if you look back at our second quarter, we sold more CRM in our second quarter than they've sold in the last decade. And I think that, we're doing great. And we just need to continue to innovate. We need to continue to listen. We need to continue to focus on our customers. And my experience has been that when you do those things, then everything goes pretty well for
So
you.
he's not worried, apparently. But but he's right. They can bring a lot to bear. Now, I had an interesting interview this morning with from the podcast with Vic Condotra for his new company, but he ran Google Plus,
Right.
and they got very worried about Facebook, and then essentially did a face plant
Yeah.
in social. And I said, why do you think that was? And he said, well, nobody at Google is social. That was a problem. They wanted, essentially they're all robots and they had no ability to be social or talk to actual people. And he said it very clearly. It was not their core business and stuff. So I think that's essentially what you're saying is that.
Well, we do one thing, and we're just trying to do that one thing extremely well.
Okay, question?
Hi, Mark. Dan Fromer from Recode. I have a question. How do you work? Do you have any productivity hacks or a style of work?
How do I work?
It's a very good question.
Yeah. I have a very informal style of work, and I would say that, you know, I spend a lot of time with my employees and executives. I also spend a lot of time with my customers to kind of Quentin didn't like my answer, he left. And you know, I'm on the road pretty much constantly. Before Dreamforce, which is a huge event for me, I have to, you know, when I get to Dreamforce, I have to do this huge keynote, which we talked about, where we have 170,000 people at the conference, 10,000 in the room, 15 million online, and I want to do a good job. And so I went to 8 major cities here in the United States. I'd already been to Asia. I met with hundreds of customers. I do the presentation for them. I just keep doing it over and over again. I'm doing it again this week. And I just try to stay as in touch with the customers as I can.
And what about gadgets, devices?
I really only have one computer. I use a phone. It's right here. It's an iPhone. And this is all I use. And I don't really use a computer. For everything I do it on the phone. I've been doing this for a long time. I think that's really influenced our software quite a bit as well. Because
everything works on there.
Well, really well, and we have millions of users on the phone.
Great. Okay, last question.
You.
Hi, Mark. Clearly, you're passionate about many things, and you mentioned premature births. Can you tell me, in terms of healthcare in general, where technology might have the biggest impact in changing our dysfunctional healthcare system?
Did
You're
you hear
going to have
that?
to help me with
Yeah, I
that.
didn't hear that.
We didn't hear it very
Healthcare system,
well.
your views about how technology can impact healthcare.
Healthcare, how
Yeah.
technology can impact healthcare.
Well, I think that how technology can impact healthcare. Well, we've seen a couple of different, you know, advancements, which is we've seen electronic medical records.
Sure.
Okay. We're kind of seeing the next generation, which is engagement.
And wearables. Like
Wearables, okay. But I think that the big thing that we're going to see really coming up is when we have big data. I think the best example is Kaiser Permanente right here in the Bay Area. You know, there you have a closed system. And this closed system, with all this information, we talked about AI. Now that you actually starting to have this advancement in the ability to have insights out of data, I think that's going to create incredibly dramatic shifts in healthcare. And I think a lot of it will get driven out of closed systems. So whether it's the U.S. Army, who has Healthy Forces, and the Veterans Administration database, or Kaiser Permanente, really, you know, large-scale closed systems, and also like the UK government has one, other countries have them.
So
I
apply
think
AI to these.
you're going to see some amazing things, and you're seeing some things already, but I think you will see really dramatic things.
What do you think of these wearables? That's a Fitbit.
This is the Fitbit, which I'm a huge fan of and has had a huge impact on my life, and you know, I recommend that highly.
But nothing
I
else.
love that.
You don't want to have something implanted in you?
Not tonight.
Okay. All right. Oh, gosh. That's what we're having for everybody downstairs. We'll have you implanted and stuff like that. Anyway, thank you, Marc Benioff.
Thank you very
And there's
much.
drinks downstairs on the ground level. We'll be back here for breakfast at 8 a.m. and then the sessions kick off. Jeff Weiner, Gavin Newsom, Diane Green, and a whole host of others. Thank you.
Good. Nice.
Thanks. See?
Good.
Hush not, child, and don't